Hello, Paper and Glam family. My Paper and Glam readers, welcome to our, I almost said April because we were just discussing Leaves of Grass, our March installment of book club. Today we are discussing The Nest, and I am so excited for you guys to help me love this book. If you have been reading along with me for a while, then you know I really struggle with fiction, and this is the exact book that I want to love because I always read so many great reviews and people who just couldn't put it down, and then there's me who's like, oh, I really want to learn to love fiction. So that is what we're up to today, and while everyone is joining and getting settled, we will do a little icebreaker. And I actually was, oh, Hayden just hooked me up. We were like chatting about Leaves of Grass and I completely lost track of time, so sorry we're a few minutes late here, and I didn't do my little moderator duties, so the gals in the live chat know like who's going when and who's on first. So Katrina, would you like to share your oh, hold on, sorry, your favorite spring tradition or memory? I forgot what it was for a second.
Sure. Living in a cold state, I just love going outside, and this week it was 60 here and I'm home recovering and my husband's home on spring break, so we put up our like summertime lights on our porch and I sat outside and read, which is always where I get my best reading done, is sitting outside in the sun. So that is my favorite springtime, I don't know, tradition thing. I just love sitting outside in the spring and warming my body up in the sun.
I also live in a cold state, so I'm looking forward to actual sunshine without rain and or snow. It snowed here again today because apparently I live in snow apocalypse. And I'm just ready to see tulips and flowers and grass and hear the birds and see all the kids playing outside and be able to go for walks without needing 20 pounds of clothing.
I live in a very warm state, at least this year. So we have all of the flowers, which is my favorite part of spring, is all the flowers. We have a lot in our yard. We've already had daffodils. We have some tulips coming up. Our lilac is actually blooming this year, which it didn't last year. So that, I like seeing all that stuff coming up is my favorite, and all the red buds that are around and have pink blooms on them for about 2 weeks until they turn to just leaves and really boring trees. I think Tabitha is next.
Tab, are you there? Oh, am I here? No, I might be frozen.
No, I can hear you. Oh, not anymore.
Uh-oh.
Oh, now you're back.
Okay, I'm sorry guys, we might be having some technical difficulties. Okay, Katrina can hear me. Can Tabitha hear and respond? Uh-oh, okay, she just went away. Okay.
Okay, I can jump in, and then if Tab wants to go after that.
Okay, thank you.
So, well, I've got you all beat on the weather thing. We're getting a snowstorm tonight, so that's always fun. My sure sign of spring is Easter. I always know spring is coming when we start talking about Easter and we start seeing the Easter eggs and talking about the Easter bunny, and you know, from the religious side as well, it's a very reflective time. So that's always a season of renewal and a season of spring, and that's what probably represents spring the most to me is Easter.
I guess I'll go since Tabitha's not back yet. Yeah, Easter is my like favorite part of spring, and the older I get, I almost am starting to like Easter more than Christmas, which I feel like is bad, but like Easter is just like, it's Easter. It's like, it's the resurrection, and I don't know. I love Easter, and my favorite flower is daffodils, and I love to see our daffodils bloom out front and see those. And spring's just super busy because it's my anniversary and my birthday and Mother's Day, and so we just kind of do a lot.
Okay, Tabitha, are you with us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, having internet connection problems, sorry. Are we still at the
icebreaker? Yep.
Icebreaker, thank you. Favorite springtime I have a memory, which is my mother loves the cherry blossoms. And so a couple of years we would go and take her to see the cherry blossoms. And that's always like a favorite memory, even if we don't go every year. But I just love seeing the trees as they change. And it's just like, my mom is such a kid at heart, so being able to see her there, and it's just always like a memory. So even when I see trees that have the blossoms, any kind of tree that blossoms, it reminds me of the fun times with my mom.
All right. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. Oh, did I get everyone? Okay. I thought somebody joined. I know we're still missing Sarah. I don't know, Katrina or somebody, if you want to text Sarah. Did she say she wasn't going to be with us? You guys will have to refresh my memory. So I think my favorite spring tradition is, and this started in college for me. I don't know if any of you are country music fans, but I'm a huge country music fan. And there is a music festival called Stagecoach. It's the last weekend of April, first weekend of May. That's usually like the same weekend every year. And it started in 2007, and I've been going since the first one. And it was always just a tradition for my friends and I to just be outside and working out together and doing outdoor, kind of getting outside and like running and playing on the beach and doing things that were just getting in shape for this fun festival, because it's always 100 degrees and you're hanging out by the pool, and it's just kind of that feeling of renewal and like getting back outside and just standing in the sun and kind of gearing up for that trip. This year I'm not going to Stagecoach. I'm actually going to Vegas. I think I mentioned it last chat, actually. I'm going to Vegas that same weekend for Jessica, my creative director's 2-year glamiversary, and her birthday as well. So we're going to go see Brittany in Vegas that weekend. But I hope to be back at Stagecoach next year. So anywho, I've just been, going outside and working out, and it's just so nice to be outside. And like Cindy said, with Easter, it's just something about the time is just really reflective, and I always just get a lot of clarity during this season. And I don't know, maybe it's the extra workouts bring me extra energy, but something about this season, just it's very clarifying, and I feel that way every year, and I just love that. Even in LA, right, where you would think like, of course I experienced that in Denver because it's snowpocalypse until like St. Patrick's Day, and then it starts to warm up. But even here in LA, it felt that way, and we have pretty great weather all year. So anyway, all right, that is my spring tradition. All right, so we'll start with the question that we start with every month, which is, what was your experience reading the book and how many stars? So like I shared in the intro, I really struggle with this book, but it's not necessarily a reflection of the book so much as a reflection of my reading preferences. I would say like 2.5, just because, so this book was very reminiscent of Lane Moriarty, who we're going to read in September for Truly, Madly, Deeply, in that it had these characters and their stories all like wove together, right? And then like at the end you figure out how all these people are connected. And so that is very much her style, and all of her books are like that. I think I've only read one. It's like one of her very first ones, but they all kind of have that. But the problem for me with this book was it was like 90% character development and like 10% plot for me personally. So right when I got attached to all the characters, like the book ended. And I also find myself like waiting for something to happen in fiction, and then a lot of times nothing happens, and that's not even necessarily the point. So that was my experience reading The Nest. I read it and listened to it. I always kind of switch back and forth, and yeah, I know you guys are going to make me love it by the end of this. So Katrina, how about you?
Yeah, so I have had this on my shelf for over a year. It was my book pick to read this year, I think, and I was so excited. And I had foot surgery a month ago, and I was so excited to like read through this giant stack of books that I had. And turns out that when you're on a narcotic pain med for a couple of weeks, you don't really read very well because you're so snoozy. So I like hardly read anything this month. And I finally got back into reading, and I was like, oh, I got to pick it up. I got to read it. And I'd been kind of perusing the Facebook book club group, and I saw a lot of people just weren't into it and quit halfway through. And I was like, oh God, am I going to hate it? It didn't make me want to pick it up and read it, which I was so disappointed about that feeling that came. But I sat outside and read it, and I give it 3 stars. We can talk about the plot later, but I give it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I didn't have a problem with the character development.
Sorry, I thought Katrina was still talking. I gave the book 4 stars because it also reminded me of Leigh Moriarty's books, and I really enjoy her writing. So I was glad that Katrina picked this for book club this year. I've been wanting to read it for a while, but I just haven't picked it up. And I've tried to read a bunch of other books like Eligible and Rich and Pretty, and I just haven't really been in the reading mood. But I think I'm back in it now that spring's finally coming around, and The Nest just kind of got me back in it. I know we'll discuss the plot later, but I really fell in love with all of the characters, even though I ended up hating some of their actions. But I cried through most of the book when some of them were telling their stories, like Bee and Melody. So maybe I'm just a softie, but I enjoyed the book.
I've heard a lot of really mixed reviews of this book, so I wasn't sure how I would come out on it, which made me really nervous to start it. I mean, people that I respect their opinions about books, and we tend to have similar tastes. Some of those people have hated it and some have loved it. And I was kind of going into it thinking, okay, I'm probably going to have to give myself more time to read this because it's going to be harder for me to read, and I'm not really going to be into it. And it did start out really slow for me. I didn't really, there was nothing to really hook me in necessarily. But by the end of the book, if I had to give the book a rating overall, I'm somewhere between a 3 and a 4. I can't decide where exactly in that range I'm going to settle on, but somewhere between 3 and 4. I feel like the characters were really unlikable in the beginning, and she took them to a place where most of them ended up being somewhat, if not likable, at least in a place where you could be sympathetic with them. So it was more for the writing that I enjoyed it than the story, but I did enjoy the story too, and we'll talk about that more later too.
So I listened to the book Audible. I was not able to get through it all. I gave it 2 stars, which according to the Goodreads, it's okay. I enjoyed the way that she was telling the story, but I felt like it was way too slow for me to really get into it. And there was so many characters, and I was just kind of like, okay, well, it just wasn't, I don't know, it was just so, I don't know, flat for me. I didn't feel like that it wasn't any build or anything. So it was really a struggle for me to finish the book. And so I was I found myself reading other things and being distracted with, which most of you know, I love Pride and Prejudice fan fiction. So I was just I got distracted because I did. But I was no, let me get back to the book because it's book club and I have to dedicate and I have to finish it. But it was so hard for me because I just felt like it just kept going on and on. I was I don't care about The Nest. I don't care about, I don't know. It just seemed like it was just only I don't know if it's because of the money thing, but it was just really difficult for me to I don't know, fall in love with any of the people. I just couldn't relate. And even with one person, I was just yeah, I was I don't care. I felt bad, but I just felt yeah, I don't care. So 2 stars, which, I'm saying it was okay, but I did love the way that she writes. I think that I really like the way that she writes, but it was just too much. I wanted it to kind of get to it, get to the, get to the heat of it before it kept going on and on and on. But yeah, I give it a 2.
I gave it between a 3.5 and a 4 star. I find it interesting that yes, the writing style is similar to Leanne Moriarty, but I love Leanne Moriarty's work. She's one of my favorite authors for sure. But like Lisa Marie said at the beginning, you kept waiting for something to happen, and it almost gave us the plot line. Nice hair, Sarah. Sorry. She came up on my screen and she's all beautiful. Holy. Anyway, Leanne Moriarty, I think, is more at being the page turner and surprising and kind of sucking you into the book more. This was more light. You kind of knew what The Nest was right from the beginning, and it was basically she gave you the nest, anyway, we'll get into the plot after, but the style was similar to Leanne Moriarty's, but not as good. I try to stay away from the opinion platforms like the Facebook posts and that, because I'm impressionable and people will talk me in and out of liking a book in a hurry. So, but I would give it between a 3.5 and a 4-star.
I also gave it a 3-star, like some other people. It was just meh, like nothing great, nothing terrible, just very middle of the road. I felt like there was some stuff in there that didn't really have a purpose except for like social, like acceptance reasons, but not actual like moving the plot along or even character development, because they weren't really necessarily things that were part of like the main story. And just, I don't know, just kind of just middle of the road, nothing special, nothing, I don't know, like Tabitha, nothing super compelling. Easy enough read, slow in the beginning. That's about it.
All right, Sarah, you're with us. Hello.
Hello. I don't know if I have, I mean, other than like an Easter celebration, I don't know that I have like a, solid spring tradition, but I guess Easter counts, right? Because it's the spring holiday. But yeah, we always do something. And when I was a kid, my grandma would have like a crazy Easter egg hunt on Easter that involved like, like 20 or 30 of us kids and like 1,500 Easter eggs. So you just kind of walked around and picked them up. So I don't know. I fond childhood memories, and then now as an adult carrying less extravagant, but just having fun things to do with the kids, my nephew and my stepson, and that's it.
All right. Thanks for sharing your spring tradition. I just pinged her on the side if she wants to share her spring tradition. And Sarah, you are looking fierce. Is that Russian red that you're wearing?
It's Boss by Smashbox.
Oh my gosh. Well, it is smashing. How did you enjoy, or how did you experience the nest? I want to assume you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked it. It was a little slow in the beginning, and full disclosure, I did not finish because it was a little slow, and I started it forever ago and just have been kind of plugging away at it. I love the characters, and so I think they're complex characters, which I enjoy, but it's been a little slow going. And probably give it 3.5 stars. That could change when I finish it, but I mean, it's just a good book. I totally recommended it to another friend, and I like it.
Okay, well, this book was actually a book of the month book. It was last spring sometime, maybe. You guys might remember better than I do. I think, Katrina, you were the one who originally turned me onto this book, and it felt like everyone was reading it at that time. So this was the book that helped me find Book of the Month originally, and then Katrina joined, and I was like, okay, now I have to join because I have to do everything Katrina does. Anyway, so you know how that goes when you have a friend that just has influence over you. Well, all of you guys have influence over me. I'm always like hearing about cool new things I had no idea about. So Book of the Month is one of them. But just kind of random aside, I have felt, and this is because I'm really trying to learn to love fiction, I felt like the Book of the Month books I've read so far have been in this sort of category where it's a lot of character development, but not a ton of plot. And I'm referencing like Lillian Boxfist Takes a Walk, The Trespasser. I think that's all I've read so far, but I felt similarly about them, and I thought that was interesting. That might just be a reflection of my choices, though. You guys that are Book of the Month members might have other experiences. Anyway, all right, let's get into the plot before I go too deep on a tangent here. So each sibling seems to feel that they're the ones who should get the loot, right? And just kind of to talk about characters and plot, did you feel like one of the characters had like a legit story or a significant reason why they were the most deserving of the money? I particularly didn't. I was similar to Tab, where I'm just like, I don't care about the nest. Like, none of these people deserve it, because I think Lee pointed out in the comments, that there wasn't a lot of likable characters in this book. So Katrina, were you rooting for anyone?
No, I won, but I kind of I liked that it was a book with flawed characters and bad decisions because I feel like it better reflected real life in a real situation. Situations that would be insane. But I wasn't really rooting for anybody. I understood all their predicaments, but I would get frustrated, like with Melody in her house. I was just, what are you doing? But I get it. Like that, I could see each of these people as a realistic person in that way, and for that way, I didn't mind it, but I was still like annoyed turning the pages. Like, that's a stupid decision you made. You shouldn't have done that. But it felt more real to me.
As a fan of Gossip Girl, of course, the book reminded me a lot of some of the stuff that happens to them in the TV show. And so I found myself kind of rooting for everybody, because even though, of course, it's ridiculous that they're basically trust fund babies and all their complaints are minuscule compared to some of the things people go through in life, I guess I just wanted to see what would happen if they actually got what they thought they were going to get, because they all had these dreams of how things were going to work out. And since it didn't actually happen that way, I was curious to see if anything would be different than they thought. I have to say that Jack really struck me a lot if I had to pick a favorite, because he was so flawed, but he knew he was flawed, but he ended up trying to make himself better towards the end of the book. You know, even though things might not have worked out how he wanted them to, he found a lot of himself throughout the book and things that he didn't realize that he needed in life or wanted in life. So I guess I would pick Jack as my favorite.
I'm in agreement with Katrina. I was like sitting there the whole time like, well, this is this way because you made this choice. And obviously if you hadn't done that, then you wouldn't be in this problem. But I don't know, like, I like the fact that it was, like she said, realistic problems. It wasn't like they were just, I don't know, some off the wall thing that they needed the money for. It was like, I need to pay for my business. I need to pay for my kids to go to college. But I wouldn't necessarily say that I was rooting for one of the siblings over any of the others. I could definitely relate to some of their problems more than others, but that's just because of my own life circumstances. But it didn't make me feel like they deserved the money or not. The money was kind of secondary to what I liked about the story, like some of the others have said. So no, I wouldn't say that I was rooting for anyone necessarily.
I didn't root for anyone either. I was thinking in the back of my mind, like, yeah, it would have just been great if the mother, just took the money or something. That would have been cool. But I really liked Walker, though. I thought, if I have to pick from amongst the characters, that I would choose him because, he's not a sibling, but I feel like he was level-headed, and like his intentions were in the right place. And I don't know, I just felt like out of all the characters, if I could choose, I would choose him as a favorite. Yeah, I would go with Walker.
I think I had a hard time empathizing or sympathizing with the characters, because talk about counting your chickens before they hatch. I think what turned me off was everybody's sense of entitlement, and they even made a joke about it and called it the nest, and this was going to happen and that was going to happen, and it like I said, I had a hard time not thinking, boy, that was presumptuous, or you really counted your chickens before you hatch, and sometimes stuff like that happens. And so yeah, I agree with most of the group, where I wasn't like, oh, I hope she gets it. It's like, well, you're basically what's happening is as a result of your poor decisions. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the count your chickens before they hatch thing is, Walker says it, Walt says it, like, Melody keeps saying, like, Walt didn't believe in the nest, right? That's her husband saying, yes, I hope so. Okay. And, like, so I'm kind of like with them, like, what are you doing? Like, you can't spend money before you have it. And I'm sympathetic to Melody's like she moves into a town where there's a good private school, and so everything's for her daughters, so she's not selfish so much. Whereas like Jax is like, part of it's his business, but it's like, oh, I want this vacation home, which is like not a necessity in life. Like it's a vacation home, and like to take a loan against your vacation home without your spouse's approval is like like, oh my gosh, I don't know why anyone would do that. That's like such a breach of trust, and trust is like so important. So I understood when Walker, was mad. And so, I think Melody breaches that trust by spending money on the credit cards behind her husband's back to do this or that or that. And so I think that they both breach that trust in different ways, which makes them unsympathetic. And I would just rather talk about characters that I don't like.
Yeah, I just kind of, the siblings were all kind of felt a little villainous almost. Not like actively villainous, but I don't know, none of them felt like rooting for. I did Jack's situation, I think because Walker seemed like such a good guy and was like his rescuer. I felt my heart bled a little bit more for that situation, and the betrayal. So, but I don't know. I just kind of thought they all were such yucky, flawed characters that I don't think anybody was necessarily deserving, if you will.
Yes, I think we would all agree. I really liked in the comments, it was pointed out that Walker and Stephanie were really great characters too, even though they weren't really plums in line. Well, they weren't plums in line for the nest, so they weren't like officially part of the question, but they were really well developed as well, and probably the most likable characters, especially Walker. He was just a gem for his limoncello and his cooking were just so endearing. So yeah, I agree. And I definitely agree with the comments and what book chatters thought too, where Jack was the most well-developed plum, I thought, and I related to him the most, but that's because he has this really high overhead labor of love, as do I. So it was definitely, I was like, oh, save the antique business. I was like, Jack should get the nest of anyone. I don't know. He was the most likable to me, I would have to say, but yeah, at the same time, they were both so spoiled and entitled. It was hard to relate. So I think we all agree. All right. So next is, what was your favorite quote, character, scene, or literary device from the nest? So this is kind of to flesh out some of the great writing or the great scenes, all of that stuff within the plot and all of that. And I'm a sucker for quotes. I love collecting quotes. So mine is on page 33, and I just, not only was this just beautifully written, well, actually it starts on page 31, the beginning of chapter 2, and then it kind of finishes on 33, but this just was so, living in LA, this really described kind of a bit of the culture around me. It says, it was, and so in this part of the book that they are talking about, or the author's talking about the plum patriarch. What's his name? Leonard? I can't remember. Yes, Leonard Plum Sr. and how he, was kind of a self-made man. It says, it was the organizing principle of his life that money and its concurrent rewards should flow from work, effort, commitment, and routine. And I love that. I love that they included routine. I thought that was so interesting because it's totally true. And I never thought of routine as kind of an input for success, if you will, even though it completely is. Yeah, anyway, I just love that sentence. And then it goes on to say, he'd seen the damage and influx of early money caused. Abundance pro-offered too soon led to lassitude and indolence, a wandering dissatisfaction. And I thought that was so true, and also like a missing sensitivity chip. And that was just, it was just so well written, that line. Katrina, how about you?
Yeah.
Oh, we might have an internet connection issue. Can you? I don't think we can hear you.
Now? my favorite quote was, if you want people to judge you from the inside, don't distract them from the outside, which I think is so true. One of my friends has a woman in her office whose nickname is Pajamas because she constantly wears pajamas to work in this like professional science company. It's just, I agree with that totally. And then my favorite scene was Tommy's chapter about looking through the 9/11 debris or a memento of his wife and from his wife, and it just broke my heart. Like look at my husband and be like, that ever happened to us, because I can't imagine. So that scene just like is one of the, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So that scene I will remember, and that quote is my favorite. Hate it.
So mine was on page 316, about halfway down the page. "You're more like a guy than a girl," Will Peck said to her once when they were together, and she suggested that he might want to sleep at his place a little more often. He didn't appreciate her love of solitude. She supposed that was true in a way. Although she didn't buy the stereotype of women being the needy ones, it seemed wrong. Sure, there were women hell-bent on getting married, but men were just as bad once they decided they were ready to pair off. Wasn't it divorced or widowed men who always remarried right away, who had to be taken care of? Wasn't it the elderly women who reinvented their lives alone? All of her friends whose marriages had split up, and by now there were quite a few, it was usually the women who had the courage to step away from something broken. The men held on for dear life. I like that paragraph because it really showed the strength and solidarity in Stephanie, that she wanted to make a better life for her and her daughter with or without Leo. And I just thought that was a really great paragraph to show her character.
My favorite it's the scene where Jack is talking to Tommy about the kiss statue, and he's trying to basically get him to sell it, and Tommy's kind of fighting it, and he says, "If you want to keep it, I get it." And then he's thinking about like what we do after people die, and he says there's a whole paragraph here that I'm not going to read about going to people's funerals and having their moms and sisters and whoever offering them things like sunglasses and whatever, and he would just take it. It says, "Jack kept everything neatly folded and arranged on one shelf of a bedroom bookcase. The Museum of Death," Walker would grimly joke, but he cherished the tokens too. All the remembering. The shelf held nothing of value, and it held everything of value. It was the past they'd both endured and escaped. It was despair and hope. It was life and death. And that just, I don't know, I've been reading a lot about grief lately, and a family friend had died recently, and it just like, that was, I mean, the whole thing with the kiss statue, like Katrina was talking about, just like broke my heart, like him finding it and all that stuff. But yeah, just this idea of keeping things that don't really have value because they become valuable because of who they belong to before.
Yeah, that's beautiful. My quote is from chapter 33, and since I did Audible, it's kind of hard to get the quote because I'm like trying to write it down, so it might be a little paraphrase, but it says, "Walker understood conflict resolution. He understood how money and entitlement that often accompany just the idea of money could warp relationships, memories, and decisions." And I mean, that's so true of money. Even, I mean, they didn't even have the money. It was just this anticipation of having the money, and how it completely changed, what, the whole family dynamic. But I think that that's true, like with money. It can easily just, the people who are best of friends are no longer because of a money conflict, or, we see it all the time on Judge Judy, but, I thought that was such a quote that stood out to me, because it's like, yeah, we forget about, oh, how much I love this person because, oh, they never paid me back, or, we forget about, how important the relationship might have been before money became an issue. So I liked being able to listen to that quote because, because we're supposed to think about what's more important, relationships, not money. But sometimes it gets hard, especially if you've been burnt in reference to money and family or relationships. So that's it.
My favorite quote came from chapter 12. It's when the twins are at the museum and anyway, I won't ruin the plot for anybody, but I'll just get to the quote where what's her name now? Simone says to Nora, everyone is always on the hunt for a mirror. It's basic psychology. You want to see yourself reflected in others. Others, your sister, your parents, they want to look at you and see themselves. They want you to be a flattering reflection of them and vice versa. It's normal. I suppose it's really normal if you're a twin, but being someone else's mirror, that's not your job. And I think that spoke to me on so many levels. Whether you're a teenager trying to fit in, or being a part of a social group trying to fit in, or it just speaks. It spoke to me a lot about what the book is about and how everybody was waiting for the money to fit in or to fulfill something within themselves. So that's what I took away. I thought that one was a really good one.
Mine comes from like a similar time, like around the same thing with the girls, and it's when she's contemplating like how to tell her twin, and then she says she wasn't even sure. Just be honest. She could hear her mother's voice in her head. Telling the truth is never wrong and always easier, which is funny since Melody's like lying to her husband about the credit cards, but the truth seems so hard to tell up front, but in the long run, it's so much easier than to have the burden of when you're found out. And so because you're most likely to get found out, I know sometimes people get lucky, but not always, and most often I feel like not eventually your truth is revealed. So I really liked that. And my favorite scene, it's really hard. I really like when he brings the mirror so that she can like see her foot and scratch it, and then I really love when they're walking down the street and he's like, oh no, the statue's walking toward me, because I totally knew that's what he was thinking the second he saw them, and then he like freaks out because to see something that you identify with come to life like that would be pretty scary, and such a serendipitous coincidence, I guess.
Awesome. I have one more quote, and this is just because I'm a seasonal junkie. It's on page 284, right before part 3, Finding Leo, and it's talking about Stephanie talking about, her daughter, and she says, she thought about the small back room that she'd turn into a nursery and how it would be summer when the baby was born and her garden would be in bloom. She'd have to replace the tree that had fallen during the storm so the baby could look out and watch the seasons pass. I thought that was genius. I mean, I'm sure we all look at the trees and see the seasons reflected in them, but to actually have a tree planted to specifically reflect the seasons was such a beautiful idea. If I ever manage to buy a house here in LA, I definitely need to plant a seasonal tree. I think that is just genius. All right, let's see. Next question is number 4. How would you live your life if you knew you were to receive a fair amount of money down the line? So a couple precursors to this question. You have to assume that you will get the money. So you're for sure going to get the money, because obviously, like, you should never assume we're going to come into a large amount of money. But so if you for sure were getting an astronomical amount of money and work was not a consideration, what would you do, Katrina?
Ugh. Okay, sorry for the weird noise if you heard me struggling. I would probably, so you said we just get a big amount of money. What are you going to do with it? You didn't know? Sorry, I couldn't read the question. My computer's being super slow.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, it's
Okay.
if you were going to receive a lot of money, like in the future, how would you like plan for it? How would you choose to spend it if you were for sure going to receive a very significant amount of money?
I mean, the smart thing to do is pretend like you're not going to, but I think most people are going to always have that thought in the back of their head that, oh, whatever, like that'll happen and then it'll all be okay again. But I think balancing those two fighting on your shoulders would be difficult, but you know, until you're in that situation, you don't really know how it's going to go for you, and you don't know if you've known that your whole life or if you've had past experience to think about and reflect back on. So I don't know. You'd like to think you do the right thing and not go crazy.
I do not believe in doing the right thing, as you only get one life and you don't know when that's going to end. So I would travel around, kind of be like a nomad. I would travel around and work little jobs to support myself during that time and just see the world, because to me that would be amazing.
Okay, obviously, this is based on the fact that I know that I'm getting the money and it's coming, because if it was really like, you know, you're promised this money, I would do like Katrina did and just be like, yeah, but what if it doesn't come? But if I had the money, knew it was coming, it was guaranteed, I would probably travel with my family. Traveling has changed my world a lot, and so we want our kids to experience that, but it costs a lot of money. So we don't really do as much as we would like. We do take them places, but not as many places as we would like to. So we would give our kids, I think, experiences that we could share with them and would be like lifelong memories.
Sorry, I forgot I was next. Okay, so long list, what would I do? Buy some property, like land, like a good chunk of it, massive house for multiple family living, have, my mom and my parents and, have them all in one spot so we can all just not worry about mortgages and and things like that, or rent or any of that kind of jazz. And I would, have like a personal driver, a personal chef, and any personal somebody that would have to do everything for me. I wouldn't have to do it. But I would also, because I'm such a in general, I would probably really like to, give to an organization of some kind, probably, really help people who live, in poor areas or something like that. But, take care of the kids, college. Yeah, so that's pretty much the basics. Maybe, maybe dabble into business, be risky, because, I think that's some of the pluses of having some money. You can take risks that you don't have to worry about. Maybe, learn some things, like learn how to do the stock market or invest or something. I don't know. It'll be kind of fun to just have just the idea of just a whole bunch of money and just go, yeah, let's play, let's have some fun. That would be it for me.
Well, because life has taught me that nothing except taxes and death is guaranteed. Before I got the money, nothing would change. I don't care how much the money was. I don't care where it was coming from. I don't care if I had it in writing that it was coming. I wouldn't change a darn thing. After I had the money, I do everything everybody already said. I would absolutely travel. I would absolutely take care of my kids. I would absolutely do the real estate thing. I would do it all. But honestly, I don't have the guts to spend the money before I have it. Like I said, it's just, I guess I'm paranoid that way. I just can't imagine living the life of Riley and living high on the hog, and then something inevitably would happen. Like I end up having a brother, just like what's his name, and it would all be gone for some reason. So yeah, no, I nothing would change. If I got news tomorrow that I'm going to inherit all this money when Auntie Sue passes away, that's great. I wish Auntie Sue another 100 years of life. Nothing would change. But that's just me.
So I'm going to sound like a really spoiled brat right now. But I actually, what I thought was a lot of money, now as an adult, maybe not. But I did have a trust fund because my dad died when I was in junior high. And so 2 years later, when my grandmother died, I inherited his portion. My brother and I together inherited his portion of her estate. and we couldn't touch it till we were 25 unless we used it for college. So, you know, I used mine for college and I paid for my degree myself, I guess. I had to go to the executor, who was my uncle, so very much like the book, and get a check every quarter, and he would make it out to the college. And when I wanted a computer, I had to go and like argue my point of why a computer was necessary for college. And then there was still a fair amount left after I had paid for my bachelor's degree, and figured out how to get my bachelor's degree cheaper by graduating early in 2 years rather than 4 with a 4-year degree. And I paid for my teaching credential, and then I still had a good chunk of money left. And we had to wait for it, and I didn't like count my chickens before they hatched. But after I got married and we went to buy a house, and my uncle let me have the rest of the money early so that we could put it toward our house. So now I sound really spoiled, but I swear I like live in the hood. Okay. I swear I live in like, last year was like the 9th most dangerous city in California. I don't live anywhere special. But you know, it was a lot of money, and for someone my age to have.
So I don't know. I don't know if I would do anything different. I mean, similar to you, Jana, I mean, my parents have put away a lot of money, and we've had lots of conversations about, you know, like potential inheritance. But again, like Cindy said, nothing is guaranteed in life but death and taxes. And I continually encourage my parents to spend the money that they have saved, you know, rather than relying on that. I mean, my sister and I are very different. I think she relies a little bit more on that potential money, but I did nothing to earn that. So I would never feel right expecting that. That said, if I ever do inherit large sums of money, I would, and it's not like my parents would be large sums, nothing like the plums, but I would travel then. But now, I mean, I'm going to do everything I can to build my own life, and not rely on the hard work of someone else to, you know, to pay for things. I mean, obviously, I, like everybody else, maybe not obviously, but like everybody else, I would probably, you know, spend a little bit frivolously when it was actually in my hands. But I don't know, it feels morbid expecting that and making plans. And then obviously in the case of the book, it was really foolish that they made all these plans for money that was not theirs, and they made foolish choices. So.
Oh, I'm losing my light, I just realized. So I forgot the second precursor of this question, which is you can't, you know, donate it to like clean water in Uganda or anything. It has to be spent, you know, on yourself. So I would say that I've had this fantasy that, so I haven't traveled as much as I would like to, because it is expensive, and I'm a bit of a workaholic, like many of you guys shared. I'd love to travel, but I have this fantasy that I would pick somewhere different in the world to live every July and spend like the whole month in that city and really just immerse myself in the culture. And then the whole year, like leading up to that, I would love to just read like everything about where I would be living that year. That's just been a long time dream of just what I would love to do. When I went to France in, it was right the summer before college, I learned that, you know, the French take August off. And I was just like so fascinated by that concept that, you know, there was this culture that took an entire month off, and it was like a countrywide thing. And I'm sure not everyone obviously is off, but it's kind of a cultural norm. And that was just amazing to me. And I just, you know, you guys know I'm like so fascinated by just the human experience, and that's why I love nonfiction. But just being able to immerse yourself in a culture, because I mean, everyone has so much to teach us, but like every person has so much to teach us, but then when you multiply that by just a whole culture, I just think it would be so fascinating to just live a entirely different life for 1 month out of the year. Not that I don't love my life. There's no, you know, there's nowhere I'd rather be than, here. But that's just a dream. Also, I would love to take my mom, just because she is self-employed, and she, you know, is always working. When, you know, you're self-employed, there's no PTO, no calling in sick when you're the boss. So, you know, she hasn't had the opportunity to travel much, and I would love to give her that opportunity. So that is a long-time dream of mine. All right, and thank you guys for sharing such you know, personal stories, Jana and Sarah. I appreciate that. All right, the next question is, how did you feel about the novel's end regarding Leo's fate? Did the epilogue satisfy enough of your desire for a happy ending, or with Leo's absence, was it more melancholy than expected? So I absolutely wanted Leo to come back and redeem himself, and I totally thought he was, after he left B and Paul on the boat and like didn't ruin their moment. I thought that he would come back, and I thought that was kind of going to be a turning point. But yeah, I don't know. I love a happy ending. I'm like a product of Disney, I guess. How about you, Katrina?
I was so glad that he didn't, and I'm glad that he ran away, and I'm glad that when he saw her face fall, that he realized it was because of him and didn't come back. I love flawed characters in this form. I didn't feel frustrated with him. I kind of felt like once he did leave, as I was reading, I was like, I don't think he actually is going to come back. I don't think he is. I think, and then the other characters start to turn and get better. So I enjoyed the ending of that, and not coming back for the birthday party and not being there to see his daughter, because Stephanie didn't need him there. I like that she's a strong woman with a baby and is fine with that. And then, you know, they show wedding and things like that, and that Jack walked her down and that it hurt for a second, but I loved it. I thought it was perfect way for this book to go with all of the characters.
I too am a sucker for happy endings, but I was happy with the end of the book. It wouldn't have been right for Leo to come back, and it was nice to kind of see how Jack fills in that role and realizes that he could have enjoyed being a parent after all. I will say I was a little disappointed that he and Walker weren't able to work it out, but I was glad to see that he found out he was happier living on his own than with another person.
I think I was expecting for a while for Leo to come back with some crazy plan or something. But then I feel like at the end, when he saw them and then didn't come back, that was him allowing them to have a happy ending. I think he knew that if he came back, it would cause distress. It would disrupt their lives again. And I feel like him walking away was the happiest ending he could give his own family members.
I didn't make it to the end, but but from what you guys have shared, I'm happy that Leo didn't come back. I think it's him being true to his character, the character that she spent a lot of time, you know, explaining a whole lot about where he is and why he is. It just seemed consistent. It's not like he had some kind of, the accident didn't give him some aha moment or anything. So it only makes sense that he still would be like, yeah, I'm out of here. I don't know.
I agree with what Erica said. I think you nailed it right on the head. I think that him not coming back was partial redemption for me, in my mind, of him redeeming himself, because he probably knew full well if he came back, he was going to complicate things for everybody else again. So, you know, kudos for him for growing up a little bit and knowing that these people have moved on, and he should too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone else. I think that he would have just kind of messed things up. Someone else said in the chat, the only thing that I was like, oh man, like he never really knew that Stephanie was pregnant. And so, you know, I feel like his decision was not like a maybe fully informed one. However, it still was the better, you know, decision overall for everyone. I would have liked to kind of know what happened to like super awesome grandma mom, you know, their mom, because, you know, she's not mentioned either, but she was super great.
So this last question, feel free to take a pass. I know Hayden, you want to take a pass. And I found this question on, I want to say Lit Lovers, and this went over my head. So I thought that I would open it up to the group. So the question is, ultimately, this book is about defining ourselves as individuals within a family or even a career. How does each character learn who he or she is and what ultimately makes for a fulfilling life? So I didn't realize that was like the underlying sub-thread. I don't know if you guys said you might be more astute readers than I am. Again, I struggle with fiction. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go with the end. Katrina, do you have any thoughts on that?
A little bit. For me, it's that each character kind of had something holding them back from letting go and being themselves and finding freedom in that form. And I think I kind of recognized that early on because the twins kind of had like each other and being mirrors or whatever and everything in each other. And then the mom is obsessed with Melody, right? Then is obsessed with her girls, and it's all about that and what she thinks, you know, the plan that she has for them. And then Jack is so defined in his partner that it turns out that he functions better alone. And I think for each one of them, there was just one thing that had to happen for them to be just pushed over the edge to see what was holding them back from just relaxing and being themselves. And I liked that. I liked the theme. I did notice like self-discovery and fulfillment through it. And I think it's interesting that the path that it took for each of them, but it was also triggered by the one thing of the money in the nest. And it just kind of like shuffled them all along. And even the side characters find that same fulfillment. Matilda does, is it Vinny or Vince who she's with does, like all of them find that in the end. So I enjoyed the theme. I liked it.
Yeah, I think like overall it was they had to get through this struggle in order to figure out the truth about themselves, which is, I mean, kind of every book is about that. But I'm a big believer that like all these trials in your life, you don't want to come up against them, but once you get through them, they are the thing that turn you into the person that you really are at your core. But I feel like too, there was the thread of like depending on other people, like not taking everything on yourself, not keeping all of these secrets, and allowing yourself to reach out, because ultimately what made them stronger was like they were a very disjointed family. In the beginning, they didn't really even want to be around each other. Jack didn't invite his family to his wedding. And then by the end, they're at the party together, everybody but Leo and their mom. They've all come to like rely on each other and lean on each other, and not even that, but like each other, which I don't think they did in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that Walker starts noticing it, you know, before like the end and before the party and stuff, right? That he's like, oh, they're starting to talk about like not nest-like things, and you know, that things are just starting to come together. And I think especially like with B, she was already kind of, you know, like she wasn't really reliant on the nest per se because she had her apartment and nobody really knew she owned it. But Leo leaving and stuff allowed her to realize that she liked this person who he kind of didn't like and thought poorly of, and that she was like kind of free to do what she wanted without his judgment over her shoulder, and like what would he think if he ran into us, and you know, those sorts of things. And I think everyone kind of had that. Like, I don't know if the bigger problem was the nest or Leo, or kind of the conflation of the two. But the kind of the release of both those problems allowed them to kind of have to struggle and own up to their realities.
Awesome. All right. So the last question, and we don't have to go in order for this. It's just, I just like to give you guys some titles that you might like, because the whole point of our book club, and I say it every month, is, you know, to read widely, and, you know, pick up things that we wouldn't normally pick up, and then find things that we didn't even know we liked. So of course, like so many of us have mentioned, and we're going to get to her in September, if you love The Nest, I always forget if it's Lane or Leanne, but you guys can correct me in the comments, but Leanne Moriarty's books are like The Nest done very, very, very well with extremely relatable characters and like twists you don't see coming. So I can't recommend her more. And if you haven't read anything she's written, then you are in for a treat in September with Truly Medley Deeply. So does anyone else have anything that really like stood out for them that was reminiscent of The Nest?
I think The Dressmaker, insofar as like it's really a character-driven novel, which I know, like I said forever ago, I'd mail it to you, but I'm terrible with mail because I don't leave my house ever, other than to go to work. But maybe you won't like it since it's really character-driven and dark. But I watched the movie because it was on, I think it's on Amazon Prime, and the movie is much better, I thought, because it takes some of that character development and like fleshes it out. So even if you just wanted to watch the movie of The Dressmaker, you can kind of get that same feeling. And it kind of has some of that same like social stuff that's like in there, just not necessarily move the plot along, but to like show realism of like people and stuff, kind of there for like the shock value to some of it, I think. I think that's a good comparison.
Yeah, we talked about, so those of you who are longtime Paper and Glam Book Club readers will remember in 2015, and I think I did it in 2014, 2015, yes. I used to do kind of a sub list of books to movies that I was also reading throughout the year, and I do one book to movie adaptations, and I do one a month, but then like in 2015, everything just kind of moved around, and like when things are projected to release in theaters at the beginning of the year, things kind of fall apart as the year goes on, and things get released that you were planning to see early, and then things that were like on schedule don't end up getting released. One of the books on the list was Fallen, and Faye in our Facebook group just posted that Fallen is finally coming out, and it's been like 2 years. But anyway, The Dressmaker was one of those books. So interesting follow-up to The Dressmaker. Yeah, if it was really dark and really character-driven, I probably wouldn't love it. But I did see the movie was on Amazon Prime, and I've had it on my list to watch. Also on Amazon Prime is Z. Have you guys seen, you guys know I love Gatsby, and I loved Z, the story of Zelda Fitzgerald. Has anyone started watching that with Christina Ricci? You guys will have to let me know if it's good. And then same with Big Little Lies, which is Leanne Moriarty's adaptation. That was our read August of 2016. So gosh, that seems like it was a long time ago, but it was last year. Big Little Lies was one of our book club reads. So I don't have HBO, so I'm gonna probably just have to buy the episodes off of iTunes. But I was wondering if any of you guys had seen those book chatters. Muted myself, sorry. Those of you who are watching live, has anyone seen those?
Oh my God, Big Little Lies is so amazing. Sorry, Sarah. But they did change a lot of it from the book, I will say. I don't know if I like what they changed from the book. It's still kind of growing on me. But they're also talking about doing a second season. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I want to see what Sarah has to say.
Yeah, so I just started it. And the sad thing is, so I haven't seen the whole like trajectory, but I don't remember. I already feel like I don't remember the book well enough to compare it, because I'm like, wait a minute, did that? I don't think so. I'm happy that you remember enough to know that it has changed things, because I've been constantly baffled, but I enjoy it. I mean, it's good. I like the characters and I like the actors in it and stuff. So I've been enjoying it, but I don't feel like I remember the book well enough, which I thought I did, to know if it's deviated much.
Okay, cool. Gina, you just told me that you missed that sub list. So last year too, for 2016, I released 52 books you need to read in 2016, and it was like my to-read list for the whole year. And I did it again this year. I do it every year because my goal is 52, and I never really make it. I think I got to like 44 last year. I got pretty close. But anyway, I just hadn't had a chance to get the blog up. But I make the list, and then I like kind of did a little blog of why I was reading each one, and a lot of them were book to movie adaptations. And I actually have one for this year. So if you guys are wondering what the upcoming book to movie adaptations are, I'll just read them off for you really quick. And I don't know that I'll get to them. In fact, I'm sure that I won't. I have really not been like in a reading mood this month. It's been really weird. I've probably read like 2 books, this and the Beauty and the Beast book, Tale as Old as Time, or as old as time. Anyway, so The Shack, which is one of my all-time favorite books. That book changed my life. I've read it probably 10 times. So The Shack is already out. It came out on the 3rd. Let's see. The Case for Christ, which is Lee Strobel's book, and I saw him speak. Gosh, maybe it was like 2008, 2009. He was just incredible. So I've been wanting to read The Case for Christ. It's been on my shelf forever. That is coming to theaters on the April 17th. Everything, which Jana recommended to me, and it is by Nicola Yoon, who also wrote The Sun Is Also a Star. That was the book, one of the book to month selections last month, I believe. So that is coming to theaters on May 19th. I hope you guys are enjoying this. This is a totally random tangent. Let me know, because I'm totally keeping you past the hour. Let's see. I'm going. I think that might be it as far as book to movies. Oh, Let It Snow, boom, is coming out November 22nd, which was going to be one of our book club list picks, and then I ended up changing it to My True Love Gave to Me because I read Let It Snow had been canceled, but now it's back, and it's November 22nd. So that is a really well done young adult Christmas book that I've heard. I've never read it. So those are all of the book to movie reads I have, and let me know if there's any that you have come across that you are planning to read. I'd love to know. All right, let's see. Anything else at Book Chatters that? Oh my gosh, sorry, I lost the window in my to read list. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Not that you guys can tell a difference. Anything else, Book Chatters, before we go?
I just in case anyone wants to know the if they have Netflix, the Death Comes to Pemberley is on Netflix. If anyone is a Jane Austen fan, just wanted you guys to know that that's on Netflix. It's really good.
Oh, that is such a good one. I didn't know that. I think it's Hayden. You have been recommending that to us for like many moons, right?
Yeah, I love that book. I knew it was on Netflix, but I haven't watched it yet. So Tabitha, I'm interested to hear what you thought of the adaptation.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm not a fan of the I feel so bad to say. I don't feel as if the Darcy and Elizabeth are attractive, but aside from that, I like the story.
Yeah, somebody just pointed out I have to put Fallen on my list. Sarah, you did. Yes, I need to add Fallen. I just saw that was coming out today when Faye posted it on our group. And I forgot my housekeeping items. So next month we are reading, as you well know, the classic Walt Whitman Leaves of Grass. So we do quarterly classics. So once a quarter we try to read a classic. Those of you who are just joining us, and sorry, I'm totally losing my light here. So this is going to be a tough one. So we're going to kind of have to commit to finish before we start, and it's start early. It's going to be hard. Luckily we have Jana, our resident literati, who teaches pieces of it, and there's tons of resources online. So if you're struggling, there's Cliff Notes, there's like a million different kind of walkthroughs for this book. So, and that's of course true of most classics. So if you feel like it's really overwhelming, just take a stab, because we're just getting out of our comfort zone. And I know a lot of us don't read poetry. We have never read poetry together, so this is kind of a first time for us all, and we'll see how it goes. Oh, and lastly, make sure you guys get your Glam Summer Glam Read stickers. These just released for May. This is the May, June, July, and August edition. They always sell out. They sell out every time, so make sure you grab your Glam Read stickers. And I think that is a wrap. So I will see you guys next month, the last Thursday of the month. I don't have the date in front of me, but we'll be chatting Leaves of Grass. And please join us whether you read or not. We always kind of have a drop off in live participation when we do classics, because I know that they can be kind of less sexy than the more fun reads that we do. But I love hanging out with you guys. It's like such a cool thing that, I send stickers home to you and I chat with you on Facebook and stuff, but it's so cool that we're like all reading the same book together and maybe wearing the same color nail polish and, kind of having a communal experience. That's really what Paper Glam's all about. And this book chat really gives us a chance to like actually talk in real time, which is like the coolest thing ever, because I feel like I know you in real life. So Anyway, thank you for spending your Thursday night with me. Now you can go watch Shonda's, what's it called? TGIT and all that good stuff. So good night, you guys. Thank you.